So these are called as test signals. Can you see my screen? It is moving on? Yeah, it is fine. Yeah. So you can see that what do you mean with test signals? So you might have already studied in control systems the various step signals, unit step, ramp, impulse, and so on. So we will discuss each of these signals. And of course, this is a continuous signal itself. So the discrete version is also available, which is in the bottom. So what I can say that, and this is a unit step signal. Why I'm saying it unit? Because the maximum value it is whatever is going at 1. So the step signal, the amplitude will be 1 for n is greater than 0, equal to 0, greater than equal to 0. Otherwise, it is 0. So that I call it as an unit step signal. Why unit? Because this is 1. This is the continuous one. In the discrete way, I can say that in the discrete way, u of n equal to 1 comma 1 comma something like that. The meaning of the arrow, wherever in the discrete, if you see this arrow, that means that this arrow represents the 0. That means 0 sample, n is 0. Why the screen is not moving? Can anyone respond? Why is my screen, is your screen is moving?
Moving, sir.
Yes, sir.
I now trying to make it as a full screen. Can you able to see it in a full screen? No.
No, sir.
Okay, I think there is some issue there. Let me stop this screening and then. I think there is some problem with the full screen. Okay, let's have the discussion like this only. Okay, so this is the test one of the test signals, which is step signal, and this is the ramp signal. Ramp means you can see that this ramp is an unstable signal. Unstable means as time goes, as time keep on increasing, and this this value is also increasing. This one can easily explain through the standard control system theory as well. Why? Because the Laplace transform of a step signal is 1 by s, isn't it? Whereas the Laplace transform for ramp is 1 by s square. What do you mean by 1 by s square? Means 2 poles at a origin, and hence it will have the unstable response. So that's what here you can see that if you translate back to the time domain, that's what it is happening. You can see that it is keep on increasing as the t goes. And here the slope of this one, it has been assumed as 1. That means y by x, the corresponding value y by x will be getting as 0. So you can have different slopes as well. You can have the faster slope. Suppose if the ramp is going like this, it has a very faster slope or slower slope as well. So the ramp signal is defined as t when t is greater than 0. Otherwise, it is 0 if it is less than. The ramp function is the integral of the unit step function. So this is the unit step function. If we integrate it, you will be getting the ramp one. So integral of step is ramp. So this is all you might be aware of this one, because what do you mean by you have seen that you step when t is greater than equal to 0, the step is 1 unity. What will happen if you integrate? You will get the t. So that's what it is happening here. It is called as the ramp because for the positive t, its slope is 1 amplitude unit per time. So that's why it is a unit ramp. However, if you say only ramp, you can have different slopes as well. And this is an unit impulse. As A approaches 0, G of t approaches a unit step, and G dash approaches a unit impulse. So what do you mean by an impulse?
Sir, not visible, sir.
Sorry?
Not visible, sir. Unit impulse function.
Impulse function. Just let me close this one and let me. Now it is visible?
Yes, sir.
I think if I'm using the full screen mode, there is some issue with this one. Okay, I will continue like this. So the unit impulse is the derivative of the unit step function, or unit step is the integral of the impulse function. So you can see that each of them are either the integral or derivative. So this is very important to observe. So which one is integral of which function is it is very important, because in some of the cases you can in for the physical systems you can always correlate with a very simple displacement, velocity, acceleration. So there is some relationship between each of them. So similarly, the unit impulse, step, and ramp, and as well as the parabolic, if you go to one bit higher, so it will be a parabolic function as well. But physically, the physical implication of the impulse signal is that if you see the impulse in vaguely, I can say that impulse is force into time very roughly. So when the force has been applied for a very small instant of time, we call it as an impulse function. For example, if you're playing a cricket, the moment when you hit a ball with a bat, the impact whenever it happens, so that for a very short interval of time, we can treat it as a kind of impulse signal. That means for that particular time itself, you will have some magnitude, otherwise it is almost zero. We will see this in more typical way. In fact, impulse function and the transfer functions are completely correlated. What is the Laplace transform of an impulse function? Anyone? Okay, now I have to call you each of you by names. I will ask now. Okay, leave it. Okay, so impulse function or the impulse response, when you give a particular signal as an input to a system, we call it as a response. For example, if the input to a system is impulse and the output what you are observing, we call it as an impulse response of a system. Similarly, if the sinusoid is an input and the output what we are observing, we call it as a frequency response of a system. You might have studied Bode plot and other things. So in this thing, nothing, your system is excited with a sinusoidal signal with the frequency, and the input, if it is linear, the input and output will have certain kind of relations, so that it is a quite linear, and there will be change in the magnitude and in the phase shift. Based upon that, you can always calculate the margins, frequency, gain margin, the phase margin, and so on. So this is the representation of an impulse wave. The area under the impulse is, or weight, is called as strength or weight. So it is represented graphically by a vertical arrow. That's what I'm saying. When for a very small, theoretically, when t equal to 0, the delta of t is 1. Otherwise, it is almost 0. It is always 0 apart from this t equal to 0. When t is not equal to 0, the impulse function is always 0. And here you can see that shifted. So what is happening here? We have shifted this by one sample. You can see that it has been shifted by one sample. So what is happening here? Delta of t minus 1. When t equal to 1, what is happening here? Delta of 1 minus 1. So delta of 0. Delta of 0 is 1. And hence, that's why it is 5 into 1. So that's why you can see here. So this is called as a shifted impulse of amplitude 5. So this is the standard impulse signal, and this is the shifted. That means it has been shifted by 1 in the time axis. So otherwise, if it has not been shifted, then you have to go for this one itself. And this is the impulse train. Impulse train is similar to infinitely uniformly spaced impulse and is given by something like this. So what is happening? So the thing what we have seen here is delta of t minus 1. If t equal to 1, there will be some value here. If t equal to 2, what will happen? If t equal to 2, if I'm keeping here, so what is going to happen? If t equal to 2 and this also instead of 1, if it is 2, then you will get a t equal to 2. Here also you'll get some 5. So when t equal to 3 and this is also 3, then what it will become? When t equal to 3, so this also will have the 5 value. So that is called as an impulse train. So as you keep on changing this one, as you keep on changing the x value as well as this particular value, then you will be getting some values instead of the zeros. So that's what here you can see that what is happening here. For different values of t, and if you keep on changing, then you will be able to get the same thing. This is called as an impulse train. And now, the fundamental things now what we are going to discuss here is sinusoid and exponential signals. So these sinusoid and exponential signals are very much important. You may be aware that sinusoid is very much important because if you want to analyze the frequency response of a system, first of all, why the frequency response is so much important? Let me ask someone. Let me someone create us here. So the participants. Rakesh. Rakesh.
Sir.
Can you please explain us why the frequency response is very much of our interest?
Sir, it is used to find the desirable output characteristics of a system.
Can you please elaborate on this one?
Sir, to know the system stability, we can analyze by using frequency response, sir.
Stability, you cannot use the time response for that one?
Sir, based upon time response, frequency response is more accuracy.
More accuracy. Okay. Have you heard of time domain and frequency domain correlation?
Yes, sir.
Then? Okay. Yeah. So, Harika. Harika, can you please explain? Are you there? ఉన్నారండి మీరు పడుకున్నారా క్లాస్ లో?
No, sir.
Yeah, please explain. What is the importance of a frequency response? Next, Sirisha. Sirisha? I think people are just keeping their mobile or laptops, just on and they're just sleeping. So what I will, from tomorrow onwards for my class, all of you have to switch on your video cameras as well. Sirisha, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please tell. I'm asking something to you only.
Sir?
What is my question?
What is the importance of the frequency response?
Yes.
To know the stability of your system.
To know the stability of a system. Okay. Why you need the stability of a system by using frequency response? By simply 4 locations, I can tell the stability of the system. Chandu Srikar.
Sir.
Yeah, please tell.
The importance is mainly depends upon the output of the system.
Where are you now?
Sir.
Where are you? I am asking. Yes, please explain.
Sir, for example, when we take the TV as example, the output should be audible. So we mainly depend upon the frequency of the input signal only.
Okay. So as far as the time domain response, the only difference between the time domain and the frequency domain is the x-axis. The main difference is the x-axis. In the time domain, the x-axis will be the time, whereas in the frequency domain, the x-axis will be
Yes, sir.
x-axis will be the frequency. However, in the time domain, you have only one plot, whereas in the frequency domain, you'll be having two plots. The two plots are coming. Why? Because if you excite a system or if you give the input to a system a frequency, a sinusoid signal, the output of the system will have different amplitude from the input, and the phase shift will also is also possible. That's why the amount of amplitude what you're going to change in the output as compared to the input, basically that can be over the frequency if we plot, we call it as the magnitude plot. However, the change in the phase based upon the change in the frequency, we call it as phase plot. And the physical implication is, in general, if you want to analyze the system from a frequency point of view, because most of the noises or the bandwidth is generally represented in terms of the frequencies itself. You cannot tell anything about the bandwidth of the system or the noise of the system by saying is the time domain signal. You can see that in the time domain signal, if something is noisy, that you can see around a particular mean value, there will be some noise. But you cannot always predict, you cannot always tell what is the frequency of the noise. In the frequency domain, you can, if you plot, have you guys have studied Fourier transform? Okay, let me very simple, in a very simple way, Fourier transform tells about the maximum frequency content of a particular in a particular signal. So what we are planning, what we are doing in the frequency response is, in the x-axis is the frequency. If we plot, the frequency response, even if you take the Fourier transform, what is going to happen is it will tell the maximum amount of the frequency content of a particular signal. Suppose if the frequency, I can say that it is a 10,000 hertz or for 20,000 hertz, whatever be the frequency. And if that frequency is not desirable, or generally the high frequency phenomenon is the noise. If you see very jittery or very noisy, very high frequency signal, it is nothing but in general is a noise. In general, if you want to avoid, if you eliminate the noise, so what you have to do is you have to derive the low pass filter. Before deriving the low pass filter, you should know what is the frequency of that particular. And you should be very carefully, you have to derive the low pass filter in such a way that, it should not suppress that desirable or good amount of frequency content of the signal. For example, if you know that in the frequency region in which you are going to operate is, let us assume 0 to 10 kilohertz is only the whatever the bandwidth of your mobile or whatever it may be. Let us assume it is 0 to 10,000 hertz. And beyond the 10,000 hertz, it is in general it's a noise. So if you know that, you are going to operate 0 to 10,000 itself, so then you have to design the low pass filter such that it should eliminate all the frequency, all the frequency components which are higher than the 10,000 kilohertz. So for all this analysis, what is more important is frequency content of the signal. And how that is, I'm talking about the signal. When it comes to the system, it will be different. So that is just the frequency analysis mainly is to to analyze the noise effect on the system and how to eliminate the noise. So this is one such very good usage of frequency domain representation. Because if you know the exact frequency at which your system is getting disturbed with noise or something, you can design the filter to eliminate those particular frequency range. In fact, in some of the cases, you can design the band pass filter, band stop filter, and so on. That is based upon various requirements what you can see from the requirement. So the sinusoid signals and are important in signals in system because they arise naturally in the solution of the differential equation. This, in general, the sinusoid signals in some of the, if you in some of the systems are natural. For example, the sinusoid, that AC input. So obviously it is a sinusoid. It is by nature. You are not imposing to be the sinusoid or something. So it is a kind of sinusoid, by nature. And there are so many other mechanisms as well, which will follow a sinusoidal, or in more specifically, if we say it is the periodic nature. Periodicity, we'll see what is that one. The sinusoid signals can be expressed in either of the two way. Cyclic frequency form, so A into sine 2 pi, F naught into T. So F naught and T naught are inversely proportional. You can write it 2 pi by T naught. If F naught, you can write it like this. And radiant frequency from A into sine omega T. Sine omega naught equal to 2 pi F and 2 pi by T naught. But T naught is the time period of the sinusoidal wave. So this is the two ways of representing the sinusoid. However, there is some relationship between the exponential signals and as well as sinusoid signals as well. You'll see that aspect as well later. So as we discussed, x of t equal to a sine 2 pi ft plus theta. What is this theta? Tejamai, what is this theta?
Phase up.
Phase shift.
Yeah, let's ask.
Phase shifts.
Okay. Okay. So the phase shift. Okay. So this is one way of representing. And if it's a real exponential, a into e to the power of at and j omega, you can represent the complex exponential as well, where phase of sinusoidal wave, and some people say it is a phase shift as well. A is the amplitude, F is the fundamental cycle frequency of a sinusoid signal, and omega is the radiant frequency. Omega is the frequency in radians. So this is one representation of the sinusoid. This is normal signal, and in the exponential terms as well, you can represent it. So here, another important class of signals, you can see that exponentially decaying or the exponentially increasing. Can any of you can tell some example of this one? Okay, so let me give you one real practical example of this exponential signals. So do you know the COVID rate, how it is happening? The number of COVID cases, it is growing something like this. So it is following the exponentially pattern. So what is going to happen? It is not the linear. If it is linear, it will go like this, But it is going exponential. It is highly non-linear. That means as the number of days are increasing, earlier it was in the initial stage the cases were low, but as the number of days are increasing, then this becoming more and more steeper. So this is going up and up and up. It will after some time, there is a chance that if you don't take the particular action, or if the public doesn't take any precautions and so other measures, then this will become very like this. It might become very infinitely very large. So this is exponentially increasing, and exponentially decaying is, in some cases, suppose this is your total wealth now. I mean, let us assume you have 1 crore rupees, and if you simply waste your money if you invest in the very wrong way, then suddenly it will go down. So it doesn't mean that, or otherwise, in other way, it will linearly go down if you simply sit in your home and eat, and whatever, doing nothing, don't do anything, and just then this 1 crore you can survive for at least 30-40 years simply without doing much investment. And other thing is exponentially decaying is, suppose if you have 1 crore rupees and if you have invested in some kind of IPL betting, then there is a chance that suddenly it will go down. So in a one day, from 1 crore rupees, you can become a beggar. So that is exponentially decaying. So this is COVID is one such case of exponentially increasing, and betting is one such case of exponentially decaying of your wealth. So there is always possibility that. So I haven't seen anyone in the betting who has built the house, but I have seen many people who sold their house when they were involved in the betting. So, and this is also decaying sinusoid signal and the growing sinusoid signal. So this is kind of unstable. slowly you can see that the magnitude of has been slowly coming down. Here the magnitude is slowly increasing. And this is the signum function. Signum function. Okay, I'm just about to close. Next class evardandi? Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, sir. Ravi Kumar, sir.
Okay, fine. So signum function is such a non-linear function. When t is greater than 0, it is 1. And if it is 0, when t equal to 0, it is 0. And t is less than 0, it is minus. So this is a signum function. The signum function is more specifically used in some kind of control systems design, like sliding mode control and so on. So this is very much important signal function. So you can see that it is closely related to the step signal. The half of this, you can see that from here to here, half of this signal, it is closely related to the step signal. That's what we have seen. And you can see the mirror image. So somehow it is related to the step signal. And the rectangular pulse, you can see that the rectangular pulse delta when t is less than a by 2, it is 1 by a. So when t is less than a by 2, it is 1 by a. At it is not t, it is the absolute value of t. Absolute value of t is less than a by 2, it is 1 by a. Otherwise, if absolute value is greater than a by 2, then it is 0. You can see that it is 0 here. Absolute value means, the other way you can see that, apart from in between this region, everywhere it will be 0. So, sorry. So this is the rectangular pulse. And this is the triangular pulse. The triangular pulse, it will keep on, the slope from either side will keep on increasing unless both of them intersect. Okay, whose heights are both, but it is base width is not. So it is called as a unit triangular function. So this is 1 minus 1 and 1. So this is and this is kind of equilateral triangle. So this is called as unit triangular function. And it will be used for the convolution. We'll see later what is the convolution. And this is called as a sinc function, sine pi t by pi t. You can see that at the peak there is some value, and slowly, as the time increases, this particular peak value has keep on decreasing. Sinc function. And the discrete signals sampling, we have seen what is sampling. I think I will stop the class here because the other faculty is waiting. So tomorrow we will have the discussion on this discrete signal. Okay, thank you. I'm signing off now. Okay, the periodicity of the signal you can find out from this particular thing. So the period, the peak to peak, you can see the peak to peak here. It is, the peak to peak, we can find out the period from this one. And this is the unit step. In the continuous domain, you can see that these are all, the straight line here. But as far as the discrete time is concerned, it is only, at particular discrete interval of time only it is defined. In between, it is not defined. And this is also ramp. The same thing what we have seen for the continuous, for the discrete also. But the only difference is, somebody please be on mute. Who is speaking now? Let me see the speaker view. Okay, so as far as the discrete ramp is concerned, in the continuous ramp, it was a continuous signal, but in the discrete ramp, you will have the magnitude only at the discrete interval of time. In between, you don't know what is happening. Suppose in between, if you find, you have to do the interpolation. And this is again the unit step impulse. So this is very much similar to that of the continuous one. And these are different applications: audio signal processing, digital image processing, video compression. So signals are everywhere. And this is the question, remembering question, which what is define a signal, define a periodic signal. Understanding means you should have some understanding, just you cannot by heart and you can answer this question. So determine the period of the signal, x of n, how to find the period, and draw the even and odd part of the signal. So this is some of the sample questions.
And a stimulating question is give some real examples of deterministic and dynamic signals. This is what we were discussing. So in general, almost all signals have some stochasticity or randomness in it. However, if the randomness is very small, then you try to avoid that randomness. For example, though the students appearing for the main exam, uh, it is a kind of deterministic. That means 90% deterministic. That 90% of the students will appear for it, or 95. Or as per our experience is concerned, only one or two of you are absent for this, main exams. So the level of randomness is very less there. Only 1 out of 100, so 1%. So what I can say that so I can say that yes, it is in somewhat it is the number of students attending the main exam is a kind of deterministic, uh, because the randomness is very less based upon the statistics. Or if it is a continuous time signal, that's what I was discussing. Or it could be the discrete as well. So if this is a signal, this is quite sync t. As the t varies, you can able to exactly get this one. But in the realistic scenario, if you want to generate the signal, there will be some noise here due to the various factors. Instead of let us assume this is -1, it will be when this axis is 0, when this is 0. Instead of -1, it will be like -1.0000001. So that could be due to the noise in the sensors or so on. Or in fact, the things what you are measuring in the lab, the parameters which you are measuring, like the temperature or the speed of the DC motor, there is some stochasticity or randomness involved in that one. So this is a stimulating question. You have to think to yourself, what are the real examples of deterministic and random signals? And this is the mind map. So some elementary test signals, we call it as steps, test signals, step, ramp, pulse, impulse, and so on. So this is the main heart. From the main heart, which is the signals. So the classification are elementary, continuous, discrete, and application. This is what we discussed. The elementary test signals are these things. So in both continuous and discrete things, we have seen the step, ramp instead of pulse. We have not discussed pulse in detail, but impulse and other things. And applications we have seen in the communication, telecommunication. If you want to, talk to anyone, signals are important. In the medical, like somebody has told, ECG and so on important. In radars, if you want to track, some vehicles entry into the atmosphere, you can use that radar. Suppose the launch vehicle is re-entry launch vehicle. If it is from the space, it is coming back to the atmosphere atmosphere. Then how you can use the radars. It is not visible. I don't know why the full screen is not. Is it visible now? Okay. So again, I have to repeat. Okay. So this is the signals. This is elementary test signals, continuous signals, applications, and discrete. So this is what we have studied. Elementary step, ramp, impulse. The same for the continuous and discrete. Applications are communications, medical, radar, and navigation. Navigation means path is required, and if the path is based upon GPS, so if you locate, the coordinates are based upon GPS coordinates. If I say the Trajam coordinate is X and Vizag coordinate is Y, if I fix the coordinates and if I can accordingly navigate in that. So generally that is called as GPS navigation, which generally people use for various autonomous navigation. If you want to humanless, manless, if you want to use some kind of aircrafts or drones, you can do it. Just feed the GPS locations where you want to go and autonomously it will navigate. So there also the signal processing is very good. So at the end of this, faculty will randomly ask a question to summarize the discussion topic. Already asked some of you. So these are some of the textbooks. So these textbooks, what we are following is from OpenHAB. Though it looks bit bit tough, but this is the book what we are going to follow for